let's evacuate and recharge the AC, put a little dye in it. Well, there's already dye in the system, and one thing that I noticed is when I pulled the low side cap, it's full of dye, and then if you look inside the low side, you can see it's bubbling. Sometimes you'll notice, yep, right there. Look at the bottom of that accumulator. It's leaking. They're notorious for rotting out on these. Oh, right there. You can see the whole body of it. It's wet. Let me turn the camera on. Look how wet the body of that accumulator is. And then when you hit it with the UV light, bingo. It's leaking. It needs to be replaced. So it needs a low pressure Schrader valve. It needs an accumulator. Let's see if we can get access to that. So it looks like the Napa one's about 75 bucks for that accumulator. The Ford one's about $165, and I won't get it until Monday, I think? Tuesday, but I won't be here because I'm leaving. So my boss was like, no, if we can get the Napa one and the customer's cool with it and they're not set on the Ford part, at least you can get the job done today instead of making them wait. Or them having to come back like, you know, after you come back. Just get it done now. If the customer's okay with the Napa one, it has a warranty anyway. Just go ahead and do it. So, get this evacuated and see what we got in here. See what we have to charge the difference out at. What's up, boss? Looks like it's got quite a bit of pressure in it. Might be close to being full, actually. Might have just started leaking. But they all leak. All those accumulators are junk. When I put it back together, I'll show you guys how I modify it. Just like I did on my town car, it'll never rot out again. Or it'll be 3 times longer before it rots out again. Alright, just got back from picking up the parts. I took the 2 retainer clips for the lines that go to right here. You can see there's one line, if it'll focus, right there, that I took the clip off of. And then the other line is this bigger line right here. And because it's in a vacuum, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the Schrader valve first to release the pressure on it, and change the valve while I'm there, and it will release the vacuum from the system. And then right down here on the frame, there's a 13mm bolt. Pull that out and the whole housing will slide and come out of the hole in the frame, and then you can take it out and disassemble it. You can buy these tire valve stem kits off of Amazon for like 15 bucks, and it comes with like 50 valve stems. It also works for the AC lines too. There's the valve that was leaking. You can actually see the little flat spot. There's like a little cut in the seal. I can't pick it up on the camera. But that released the vacuum on the system. Now I can go ahead and swap out the accumulator. It's gonna be kind of a bear, but they have these tools that you can use. They're fuel line disconnect tools. They work for these too. You gotta shove them up in there really hard, and it's gonna probably be stuck. And as you're pulling up into it, you may have to use a pair of pliers to push it up in there past the lock ring. Eventually that will pop off. I'll lay it up here out of the way, and then work on the other line, which is this line right here that goes to it. This other one was kind of a bear to get out, but finally it started coming loose. Come on. There it goes. And you can just leave that right where it's at. And now you can unbolt it and pull it out of the frame. All right, so I forgot, actually, there's 2 bolts up there on the frame, and then you gotta come down here to the bottom. There's another bolt. You can see all the dye coming out of that. And there's another bolt down here on the bottom, and it has to be pulled out too. So there's 3 bolts, 13 millimeter, and then you'll have to try to finagle this out of the hole. And there you go. And what happens is they rot out inside and they start to swell, and then they end up snapping that case, and you can't see the leak, but it's in here. Alright, so if you're gonna reuse the old case, like the Napa one didn't come with a new case, you're gonna have to take the clips off, and then you're gonna have to release the little tabs in order to get the case to split. And this is what it looks like. It starts to rot out inside there because it has nowhere to drain. That little hole in the bottom is not enough for it to drain. This is little tiny thing here, so I cut that off, and then I opened the face up so it can breathe and keep the moisture off of the metal. The one I'm gonna do this way is I'm gonna modify it and strap it to this half so it holds it there, but I'm not gonna put that outside cover back on. I'm gonna clean this up real quick, and then I'll show you how I mod it. So in the meantime, I've got this all sprayed out here, and I'm gonna go ahead and transfer my pressure sensor over from the old unit to the new unit right here. Okay, so here's the new one transferred over, and now we're gonna set this in the housing and strap it in. It's gonna look like something like that. See how that piece of foam right there is protecting it from the plastic cover, and that tube is pointed away down the frame rail kind of at an angle. That's where we're going to be at with this. And now we're going to strap this down with the zip ties. And now there you go. This is what it's going to look like. 2 50-pound zip ties. And now the whole thing can breathe instead of that little bitty tiny hole down there in the bottom where stuff accumulates anyway. Now you'll actually, this thing will get airflow all the time, and it'll let the water drip all the time. And I put those on the back side because there's nothing that connects there, and I don't want anybody to cut their hands if they ever have to go in there again. Snip them off even, not on an angle so nobody cuts themselves, and then mount this back inside the frame, and then you can maneuver it a little bit inside those zip ties anyway. You can see I got the bolt back in on the bottom right there, and then if you come around to the top up here, you can see I got that bolt in the frame right here. And then back here, there's another bolt. Now you can start, plug your sensor back in. This line over here, it's already pretty much lined up. You'll have to kind of support that thing because the front cover's not on it anymore, and slide that line back in. Give the line a little tug. See, it doesn't come out anymore. There was enough oil on it, residual oil from before. You don't want to over oil it and then cause a concern where it drips on the frame and they think that something's still leaking. So I leave the little bit of oil that's on there. Sometimes if it's not wet enough, I'll take a little PAG oil and I'll run it around. That's AC oil, but you really don't need to. You can stick your finger in the old accumulator and grab a little oil out of that, rub it on there, and then we'll go with this line here. Rub your fingers around it a little bit. Get it nice and oiled up, and then take it there. It is. It's snapped in. Give it a little tug. It ain't coming out no more. Now you've got everything lined up, and that ain't never gonna go anywhere again. There's your mod. Now that thing can breathe all the time and it won't rot out anymore. Now, I'm going to put the low side Schrader in. The kit from Napa that has like multiple types of Schraders that we like to use is 801, 802. I'm going to go ahead and stick that in there, evacuate and recharge, and I'm going to add an ounce of oil. Dip your finger in that old accumulator, get some of that stuff and put it on there, lubricate that O-ring before you tighten it down in there. Just snug it up in there. You'll feel where it stops. It'll let you know, because it has a shoulder in it that stops it completely when it's done. You don't gotta kill it. Just get it in there. There it is. The new one's in. Now time to evacuate and recharge. Before I forget, go ahead and throw your clips back on. These lines right here. They just clip right on. Now you're good. Pull it into a vacuum, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, see if it holds. Some people like to go 30, and then recharge with 23 ounces and 1 ounce of PAG oil. You can see it's holding 30 inches of vacuum. It's not draining back, it's not doing any of that. So before it was at like 27, 28, and it would slowly over like a 10-minute period go back. This is actually holding and staying where it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna put 23 ounces in and 1 ounce of oil. You can tell the compressor is not liking it. Even though the temperatures and everything are perfect and everything's working fine, it's getting cold now. The compressor does not sound happy at all. That loud click is the exhaust manifold, the exhaust that is expanding as it's warming up. I turn the temperature down lower so I can get it to cycle more. And there it is, stabilized. But man, that compressor does not sound happy. But the problem is fixed. No more leak, held vacuum, got nice ice cold air. The customer will be happy. Now while it's running, you can see all the moisture would build up like on that line right there. And then it would collect inside that plastic housing and it would really have nowhere to drain. Well, now it's all exposed, so it'll be draining all the time, so it won't accumulate inside the housing. And it does not affect with how the AC works. I can tell you that right now, because I've been running mine like that for years. And that is like the major modification fix to the AC systems on these Panthers. And for the exact tool that I used, it was a 7/8 fuel line disconnect. Went from that to that down there. Much better. You can see it's starting to drip on the ground. That's what you want. It drips straight down instead of accumulating inside that housing. And there it is. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you. Be blessed. Take care. I'll catch you tomorrow.